Don't ever feel like if you have a dream that it's too late to start it. The most successful people are always the ones who feel like they're not doing enough. Maybe you are not doing enough. That is how you have to think sometimes in these situations. It's time to get loud. Welcome back to LoudTalk with Lavi, a podcast where we break down the walls of beauty standards one flaw at a time. Thank you so much for joining me in today's episode. It is so nice to just sit here. Today is a solo episode, and you guys, I have been going crazy filming episodes with guests lately. I think I've recorded like every second day, which is insane because I'm in school right now full time and my skincare line just launched. So I don't know, I've just been trying to line up these interviews and really passionate about the podcast. And it's a space that I really, really enjoy every single time I sit down to film. And as much as I love speaking to guests, and networking with different people in the industry, such as influencers and brand founders, it is also so nice to just sit and do a solo episode to be able to reflect on my thoughts, because I always refer to these podcasts as like almost my therapy in a way, because I do feel like they really, really help me. I'm just able to kind of collect my thoughts throughout the week and sit down and do an episode on, a topic or a feeling or something that I'm really passionate about, and that's why we call it Loud Talk. So today we're going to be talking about the feeling of not feeling like you're doing enough. This has been a feeling that has haunted me not only this past year, but I feel like my whole life. I have always felt, this feeling that I'm not doing enough in life, comparing myself to others who are maybe at different stages in their life. And this has been a feeling that I've had, most of my life. And when I do talk about it with other people, a lot of people feel a very similar way as I do, or they look at me like I'm absolutely crazy because of how much, I do in the sense of like other people's eyes. So I want to dive into my feelings about this, why I feel this way, and kind of trying to figure out in this podcast episode, I'm kind of going to be working through my thoughts with you to try and get a better understanding of why I feel this way, and maybe figure out some ways that I can eventually, work through these feelings, and hopefully, you guys are just interested in this conversation and maybe it will be helpful to you too. So to give some context, I have always been a very driven person, the type of person who loves to do 1,000,001 things. Growing up as a kid, it drove my parents crazy. I wanted to be in every single activity, play every sport. I really just wanted to do it all. And I always thought that I would have time to do it all. And the thing is, I wanted to be good at everything, but obviously, the common saying, like the jack of all trades saying, where it's like you can't be the master at all of them. And I totally agree with that. You can't spread yourself too thin. There's only 24 hours in the day, but you can still do a lot. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that they can do so much. And I did a whole podcast episode on productivity. I think it's episode 10 if you're interested in that. I talk a lot about how I've been able to kind of space out my days to be able to, work full-time as a content creator, be a full-time student. I'm taking a dual degree right now in chemical engineering and business, start up a skincare line, still have time to go to the gym, still have time for a relationship with friends. Like, you can do a lot of things, but there are going to be times where you have to like kind of cut, lines in the sand or set boundaries of how you can use your time. And you definitely can't always be 100% committed to every single thing you are trying to accomplish. Now, that is just kind of a preface of the type of person I've been. If you follow me on social media, on my, main accounts, you always see that I'm up to a different project or something like that. And that's always where I have been. For context also, I am now 22 years old, so I'm pretty young, and I would say for my age I have done quite a bit. Now most people my age are finishing up university, so I'm on track for that. But I guess the difference with me is I'm also pursuing this other career in content creating. I just started my own brand, and I'm trying to accomplish all these things. And my whole life, I was kind of, an straight A student. I was the valedictorian of my high school. I was in the cosmetology program, so I was also pursuing that in high school. So I've kind of always been like all over the place in that sense, and just trying to have as many achievements as I could. And that wasn't even something that like it was like a checklist for me. It's just things I was genuinely interested in. For example, with school, I'm taking a dual degree in chemical engineering and business. I didn't have to take a dual degree. I could have very much took engineering, but I was also inclined towards the business side of things, so I decided to take it on. I had the marks to accompany it, so that was a decision I made. Now, the thing is with all of that that I am doing, I'm in school full time. I have my career kind of set as a content creator. I make a really good income for a 22-year-old, and I'm working on a brand and working on so many projects in the background. I still, on a daily basis, do not feel like I'm doing enough. And I feel like this is a very, chilling feeling that hopefully some of you can relate to. And it really goes to show you that no matter the amount of success you get in life, and I'll put success in like quotation marks, because success is interpreted in so many different ways to so many people. A lot of people view it as, monetary only, like you're successful if you make X amount, or you're successful if you did this much school, or you have this job, or this status, or this family, or you live in this house. Like, success is viewed in so many ways. So however way you interpret success, just know that even the most successful people never feel like they are doing enough. And I actually looked at this thing on Instagram the other day that kind of sparked this conversation in my brain and made me realize, like, wow, I've really been feeling like this lately. My boyfriend actually sent it to me, and it was actually a clip from a podcast. I'm not sure which one, but the person basically said in it that, the most successful people are always the ones who feel like they're not doing enough. Something along those lines. And that really resonated with me, because although from, an exterior point of view, lots of people look at me and they're like, Lavinia, for your age, what you have been able to grow, you have become very successful in whatever, way you want to view success. Whereas I'm sitting over here and feeling like I should be doing more. Why am I not doing more? Lavinia, get on top of it. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this when other people are? And I think the thing with me, and this is definitely a problem I need to work on myself, is I'll see other people doing things. Let's say, for example, in the content creator space, I see, my fellow colleagues in the content creator space doing different projects or launching events or posting so many videos a day. And then I give myself that challenge that I should be also doing that. But what I forget is the fact that, I am a full-time student. There are other commitments that I have put myself in that I still want to accomplish. So although, it would be great to work on other projects right now, I need to stick to the ones I've chosen. And I have a really hard time, kind of not coming up with new ideas. For example, like I've posted on YouTube consistently for 9 years. TikTok and Instagram are more recent, but I'm very, I would say consistent on there. I post a lot of content. And last year, the start of this year in January 2023, I started this podcast, LoudTalk. When I came with the idea and I brought it to my mom, and I remember, because I was like, do we still have that mic? Like, she's like, why? I'm like, well, I want to start a podcast. And she was like, oh my goodness, Lavinia, like another thing that you're going to add to your plate. And that is how I've always been as a kid. I was always like, I can take it. I want to do this. And I really just like, once I had an idea in my brain, I was going to go out and do it. And that's really what happened with this podcast as well. That's what happened with the skincare brand 9 to 5 that I just launched. And already I have other projects I'm working on, because the thing with me is like, I start one thing and I keep working on that. I see it through. But already I'm in the back, working on the new project as the other one's coming out. And, it's a great thing. I love my work ethic. I think it's really helped me achieve some great things in life and been able to, get me to where I am today. But at the same time, it's really exhausting when every day I just feel like I'm not doing enough. And oftentimes, it's this whole comparison game. And I talk a lot about comparison, in terms of physical appearance and how I've overcome that and kind of become more comfortable in my skin with acne and everything. But comparison goes so much further than that. And I think one thing that I still am really trying to work on is my comparison of where I am in life. And I think a lot of us in our 20s, in our 30s, even if you're older, can probably relate to this, is comparing where you are on this imaginary timeline that society has set up for us. You graduate high school, you're expected to go to school, get a 4-year degree, you're expected to then be engaged, get married, have a kid or two, and then already be pretty, well-renounced in your job, in your career, making a significant amount of money. that is society's, timeline of success. And what it often feels like is when you're not hitting these like timelines that society has set out for you, you feel like you're behind, or you feel like you are not doing enough. And for me, I would say, even though I'm maybe ahead of society's timeline in the sense that I've kind of already started my career off before graduating school, it's also the fact that because I see other people out there doing certain things, I feel like if I'm not at their level, I'm not doing enough. For example, how many influencers are out there that are, one, younger than me, have more followers than me, have more engagement than me, maybe are making more, maybe have more of a voice on their platform? That is often hard for me to digest, and not in the sense of like a competitive way where I'm like trying to, climb this ladder, because no, I think there is enough space on this platform for every single person. I think every single person that, brings something to social media has a message to give and value add. But the issue is I get in my own head that, okay, what am I doing wrong? Should I be creating more content? Should I be following, this trend, or what should I be doing? And you can get into a very toxic mindset thinking this way, because it can be very defeating when you put everything into your work and then you're like, oh, but I'm still not at this level that I'm trying to reach. And being satisfied with where you are at is a very, very hard thing to do. I've really struggled with this. And one of the things that helps me the most when I'm in this bad headspace is I always think back to two things. We're going to go through two different methods that I have found worked for me to kind of cope with this. The first being is I put myself back into the shoes that I was in when I was, 13, 14, 15, when I was younger. And I had these dreams. And now that I'm living out these dreams, I have to really put myself back into that, younger Lavi and think, how would younger Lavi feel about what we have right now? And let me tell you, younger Lavi would be over the moon, probably bawling her eyes out, wouldn't even believe that, she's made to this point where she has such an amazing community, has expanded platforms, started a podcast. I never thought that was in my cards, all these things. And I really have to take it back, because every time, you kind of climb the ladder of your version of success, the rest of the ladder that you just climbed doesn't seem significant anymore. And you really have to sit back and take a moment to remember where you came from. The way I used to get so excited over my subscriber count going up by one, I would check that thing daily. And when I'd go from 500 subscribers to 501 subscribers, it was celebration. I was on top of the world. That made my day. And, when you start to become more successful, you can think of it, if you're on social media, think of it money-wise or however other way that you define success in your brain, right? If you start a business, your first 10 sales, it's going to feel insane, you're on top of the world. But as you grow that business and you're used to seeing 100 orders a day, 10 orders isn't going to excite you anymore, right? And now you're going to be looking for 1,000 orders a day. And when you get to 1,000 orders a day, 100 orders a day will look small. So at every step that you get, you're not going to really be able to emphasize with how you felt in the time before. And it's good. It's a good thing, because that's how we have goals and that's how we keep ourselves driven and keep, working along this. But at the same time, it can be really, really bad when all you're thinking is I'm not, doing enough. I'm not satisfied. And I think in our heads, we set these goals out for ourselves. I remember telling myself when I was younger, I'd be if I hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, it would be that's it. I've made it. Yeah, let me tell you, when I hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, I did not feel like I made it, because what was I doing? I was comparing myself to the people who had 20,000, 100,000. I was well, I'm not, big enough. Now, I'm over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I still feel the same way. Whereas, I feel there's people out there doing better than me in that sense, and it can be really hard to see when you've put so much work into something and you feel like you're not getting the recognition that, other people are getting. But I really often have to think back, 13-year-old Lavi would be so happy with that 100,000 plaque right there. That right there would literally mean the world to her, and she would not be able to even fathom that we've reached this. That is how you have to think sometimes in these situations. Another thing is you have to stop zeroing in on these like day-to-day things. I know when I was working on my skincare brand, oftentimes I felt like we weren't doing enough in a day, in a week. I'm like, we could be like doing so much more, but both me and my business partner worked full time. You know, I was still taking courses. He had other commitments as well. Like, there was no way we could allocate like all of our time of the day to this brand. It just wasn't in our cards at that time. And it still isn't. Like, we have, you know, to be able to time block certain amounts of the week to our brand, and we have other commitments that we are, you know, that we have to follow through with. And now looking back, you know, a year later, we were able to create this brand from the ground up. And when you really zoom out on your life, you can kind of see, wow, like I've actually accomplished a lot. Whereas when you zero in on the day-to-day, it's really hard to see what you've actually accomplished because you're not seeing that bigger picture. You're thinking, you know, I didn't film that video today. I didn't, you know, do well in that exam today. I didn't make this much money today. Okay, zoom out a little bit. Zoom out a little bit. What did you do this week? What did you do this month? What did you do this year? What did you do the past 5 years that have helped you get to your goal? And as long as you're still trekking along that cycle at, you know, a steady growth, I think you're doing pretty damn good. I think you're doing pretty good. Now, I think one place that I really go wrong is almost comparing myself to people that, you know, we're not in the same place. And I think, you know, you have to realize that everybody walks a different journey in this life, and everyone has, you know, different circumstances. Everyone comes from a different background, different family, different education. Everyone kind of has different advantages and disadvantages, and it's really hard to compare yourself. You know, even look at siblings. Like, me and my brother are so completely different, and I've had these conversations lots with him in terms of, you know, making sure that he doesn't compare himself to me, and making sure that since a lot of people view me in this, you know, like frame of success, I don't want him to think that he's not successful in his own way, because he is. And I always try to validate his successes and his talents, because just because they're different than mine doesn't mean that they're less valuable. So you really have to look at your journey independently, but that's hard. It's really hard to do, because I'll look at people, you know, who are much younger than me, who have maybe already started a brand or are much bigger in the social media space. And I have to realize, like, okay, I have had to put my attention to other things like school. You know, I haven't been able to put all my attention to social media. And at the same time, you know, I wouldn't necessarily be more successful if I had reached a different, you know, platform on social media maybe when I was younger. Maybe that could have affected me later on. Like, maybe it would have been harder to stay focused in school if I had this much going on a couple years ago. So you really have to realize that your journey happens for a reason, and timing is everything. But it's really hard to compare yourself. And I often think about that, like, you know, right now I'm in my final like year and a half of school, and man, it is hard to stay focused, because all I want to do is work and pursue, you know, my passions when it comes to content creating, you know, my brand, everything like that. But I've made this commitment to school. I want to finish these degrees, and I'm going to do it, but it's much harder now because my focus is so divided. So I think, you know, if I had this platform years ago, I don't think I would have handled it as well as I'm handling it now. I don't think I would have been able to be as strict with myself in making sure that I still keep time and put my energy into school as well. I think that would have been much harder right at the start of my degree, because it would have felt like, oh, well, I just started this, maybe I could just do social media. Now I'm like, no, you're going to finish this, because you never know with social media, and you should have a really good foundation to fall back on. So I'm very grateful for that. But then again, you know, any disappointment I felt these years in my growth on social media, I can really reflect on that and be like, maybe it's a good thing I haven't had the growth that maybe would have been in my mind, that, like, you know, title of success. So you really have to try to look at your journey as, you know, objectively as you can, but it's really, really easy to be subjective about it. And even in terms of, think of like people that have maybe started a business and they have a successful business, it's running well, you know, they're profitable, they've made good money off of it, whatever. Again, whatever you view as successful in that aspect. But maybe they've, you know, been working on this brand. You see them as successful now. You're like, oh, if only I had what they had. Maybe they've put in 15 years of work into it. Maybe they've had 10 businesses that have failed before that. Like, you do not know their full journey. You're just seeing that small window of it. And it kind of goes back to kind of that zoom out effect, right? It can really help. And this is something that I've been trying to do, because it's really easy to compare myself and be like, oh, if I just like, had this business, if I had this clientele, like I would be so well set off. But it's like, you don't know what it took someone to get there. And some people may look at my content and be like, oh, she just popped off on TikTok, she got a few viral videos, and look at her now, like her life's so great, I wish I'd had that. And it's like, I'm very grateful for my life. Let me just put that out there, because I don't want anyone to misconstrue this. But I have been working on growing these platforms. Yes, I haven't been on TikTok. I've only been on TikTok, 3 years now. But I've been in the social media space. I've been trying to create content for years, almost a decade. So it's like, it wasn't just an overnight thing. I've been, in front of a camera reviewing products, all of this for so long that I didn't feel like I just like fell into it. Whereas someone might perceive me like that from the outside. And it's very easy to compare yourself, at a stagnant moment to someone else's journey at that, exact frame. But you really have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because there's so much more complexities. And again, everyone's journey is so, so different. Now, I want to kind of take a break from that and talk about, maybe you are not doing enough. And the way that I think you can answer this question is if you ask yourself, am I doing enough? One, maybe talk to some people close to you in your life. I know when I talk to people in my life and I say that, people look at me like I'm crazy, or they say, are you kidding me? Like, you're probably doing too much. You're spreading yourself thin, like you have too much on your shoulders. But I do feel content, because I never, I get overwhelmed a lot, but at the same time, like I wouldn't change things right now, because I'm very grateful for what I have, and I like a busy schedule. I liked working on a lot of things. But if you feel, like you're not doing enough, and you talk to the people around you, you'll kind of get a sense of the reaction of like what you should be doing. Now, if you feel like you're behind in the sense that like you're older and you're going to university, or you're in your like 40s and 50s and you're starting a business, I don't think that there's such thing as like being behind in that, because how many successful business owners do you see like start a business in their 60s? I know people that were in my classes who were like in their 40s. I remember when I started university, they said the oldest student to start studying this year was 92. Like, I truly think it's never too late to start a business, learn something new, take a course, take on a new endeavor in life, change direction. I truly think it's never too late. So if you feel that pressure, because I often feel that way, I'm like, maybe, if I did more by my age, or I feel like I'm trying to like, I'm at a race with this like made up timeline that I just feel this pressure that I need to reach a certain amount of success by a certain age. And it's a really terrible feeling. And I think, although I know that you can actually start anything at any age and you can just make it happen, it still, creeps into my mind, that feeling of like, I'm not doing enough. So if you're feeling that way, don't ever feel like if you have a dream that it's too late to start it. Because if you have that dream, and you want to execute on it, and you're just doubting yourself saying like, I'm too old for this, or it's too late, there's no way I could go back to school now, there's no way I could start this business now, do it. Like, if you have the energy to do it and you still have that craving, that passion for it, just start it when you can, like start it. If you feel like you don't have the time for it, that's a different conversation. I've done a full podcast episode on that, of like making the time for the things that are important to you. Put the energy into things that you think are important to you. If you want to start a side hustle, if you want to start a passion project, put your time and energy to that, because that is what actually will fuel you in life and give you motivation and give you that drive. Now, this whole hustle thing is not for everyone. I know so many people who are very content with, what they have. They would never want to work as much as me or do all these things, like, and that is fine, but that is also realizing that for them, success is a different, mindset. For them, success is peace, having leisure time, not having excess responsibilities or being on this like constant grind to like make each month. Like, that is not their vision of success. So like that is where you have to differentiate what you want. But if there's something you want in life that you feel like, I'm not doing enough to get there, that's where I think you need to work on, what you're doing, because you need to be able to still allocate time and energy towards your goals. And maybe, you have restrictions. Like for me, I'm in school right now. I can't dedicate 100% of my time to my business. But the other time that I do have that's free, I'm making sure that it's getting dedicated to my business. And that's really the key difference, I would say, in that situation, is because a lot of people say, I'm restricted, therefore I can't. Well, if it's something that's truly that important to you, I promise you will make the time, because I know how important content creating is to me. And I have always made the time to create videos. No matter how busy I am, I will always be posting. Even if I miss a week, I will post the next. I will never make an excuse for that, because I do not let my life get into the way of my dreams, and content creating is one of those things that I will always make the time for. So you really have to take some time and think about what is truly important to me. And if it is that important to me, I shouldn't really be letting these other things in life take away or distract me from it. And I get it. Everybody's busy. Life gets crazy. There's families. Some of you listening may have spouses or kids or other responsibilities. And, I don't have kids. I can't relate to that. But I would say I have a lot on my plate right now for what I have. And I can tell you that from my experience, you can definitely make some time in the week, even if it's just an hour a week, 30 minutes a week. Work progressively towards your goals. Even if it's a slower progress, you're still making progress. You're still, working after those goals. So you can very much feel like you're not doing enough. And I think in some cases, I think a lot of people are not doing enough. And I think lots of people don't want to hear that. I mean, this is loud talk. We're getting loud. I'm being loud about this because I truly feel that way. I do feel like lots of people are not doing enough, or they're not at their full potential. And I think there's just this fear that, they can't do it, or they just don't know where to start, or this fear of unknown. And you really just have to be able to commit to it and jump the gun and take the opportunities that you can and work towards it. But while you're on that journey of working towards it, really try to not compare yourself. It's great to take inspiration from people. I often look up to, other co-founders I've had on LoudTalk or other influencers, and I look up to them. I see them as an inspiration. I'm inspired by what they do. But once you cross that line into comparing yourself, that's when it can get really, really dangerous, because, as I said, it just gets into this really, really toxic mindset. So if you feel like you're not doing enough, you are validated in your feelings, try to reflect on what is actually happening. And if you're just seeing things, a little bit distorted, if you're viewing them a little wrong, like the way I was, or if you are truly, having these thoughts because you want to do more, you crave doing more. And I think that's really a good thing to feel, because then, you're going to be able to be fueled and energized by this new endeavor that I hope you take the chance on. I think life is such an interesting journey, and although there's a lot of things that we just have to go through, I think we do still have a lot of control. And if you don't think that way, or at least if I don't think that way, things can get very overwhelming and very hard. And I have to be able to, see all of these amazing things that I've been able to do. And I truly think that that's all been throughout my control in a way. Yeah, I can't control how many views I get on a video. Yeah, I can't control, how many subscribers I get, or if I'm able to, reach a certain milestone, but I can control how much work I put into it. I can control the quality. I can control the messages I send out, that is all something I can control. And once you really start fueling that, you will feel so much more energized. I know every time I finish a podcast episode, finish a YouTube video, I feel just on top of the world, because I am doing something I love. But there comes that, flip side of it, where when you start to reach, certain milestones, nothing ever feels enough. I've had these conversations a lot, with people in my life, or even my boyfriend. We're very big Shark Tank watchers. And I often think to those people and, think of the sharks, right? And if you don't watch Shark Tank, it's basically a bunch of people with a bunch of money who have, who have this show that make investments into, new businesses and stuff like that. And most of these people, on Shark Tank that are the sharks, have very, very high net worths. Net worths that most people would be like, if I had that, I'd never work a day in my life, or I'd never, have to another worry, or I'd never, once I get there, I am just going to sit back and relax. And I think this is a very misconstrued mindset that a lot of us have, because I can tell you, I'm not a millionaire, I'm not a billionaire, but I can tell you just from my experience as content creator, or, in building my career, nothing ever is enough. I'm sure that when those people had $100,000 in their bank account, they said, if I reach $1 million, I've made it. But the difference is the type of person that it takes to build that and constantly be grinding and working. They can't view that as their end goal and just stop, because once they reach that goal, it drives them and it gives them the motivation to go even further and reach the next goal. And I truly think that for them, no amount of money will ever be enough. And if they have a set number in their mind right now, they'll get to that number and think, oh, I can just get to the next milestone, the next milestone, the next milestone. And it creates this, really amazing motivation, but at the same time where it can become toxic is if you're constantly chasing after a goalpost that keeps moving. And that is the thing with these journeys and these goals set out. I think goals are amazing. It can get you to really great places. I think manifestation and working towards a goal is amazing, but that goal, you have to realize, constantly moves. And if you're not able to be happy with your journey along it, you're never going to be happy by just hitting a goal. I even talk about this in terms of my skin. I hear so many people in my comments say, once I get clear skin, or once I lose weight, or once I make this amount of money, I'll be happy. And no, you're not, because that goal is going to keep moving. And once you get clear skin, once you lose the 10 pounds, once you make 10 grand, whatever it is, you're going to have a new goal. Now it's not just about clear skin. You're going to want this and this and this and this and this. It's never going to be enough. And I really needed to tell myself that today, because I have been feeling very just icky feeling like I'm not doing enough. And Lavinia, you had to realize today, it will never, ever be enough. But the important thing is the journey and the fact that you've been able to go from point A, when you started this whole journey at 13 years old, to point B now at 22. And yes, maybe some people have reached more, done more in a shorter amount of time, but you have done this much in your journey, and that is still something where I have been moving forward, I've been trudging forward, and I still should be proud of all of those accomplishments, even if it's not the same as someone else's journey. And I'm gonna have more goals. I have more goals, but I really have to try to not base it on quantities like followers or money or, an age that I want to reach certain goals by. And it's more that I just want to be able to enjoy the journey, still love creating content. I think that's my number one goal in all of this, create brands that represent my voice and what I stand for and impact people. Impacting people has been my most fulfilling goal of all of this. And I always try to remember that if no one, if this podcast gets one view and that one view, changed someone's life or made them, realize something or had an impact on them, that should be enough for me. That should fulfill me. Not the numbers, not, these random, quantities that we set as success in our mind, but the actual impact you're having. What you bring to the world, what you are doing to help your community, to help yourself, and to really just live your journey. Oh my gosh, I needed a lot of that reflection today, honestly. I just had to get my thoughts out on this one, honestly, with not feeling like I'm doing enough. And I'm hoping that some of you guys could relate to this. I know this was a bit of a shorter episode, but I thought with all the guests we've been having on, I would just hop on and do kind of a 30-minute episode, keep it a bit on the shorter side, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you've had some of these similar thoughts down below in the comments. I would love to kind of know what you think about all of this. Have you felt in this headspace, and what have you maybe done to try to get out of it? Is there anything in this podcast that helped you out with that I got to share from my own experience? But yeah, if you're listening in on YouTube, watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us on the channel. Make sure to subscribe to Loud Talk with Lavi. We do post every single Sunday at 7 a.m. MST. And if you are listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other streaming platform, go check out the YouTube version for sure, and give this episode a 5-star rating on whatever streaming platform you're listening on. Of course, remember to tell yourself something you love about your skin today. Go shop 9 to 5 Skin. I have it there in the background if you're watching on YouTube. That's my new skincare brand. It's a brand targeted for the person on the go, mainly men, because it's a really simple 3-step routine. So I know how hard it is to get the guys in your life to apply skincare. 9 to 5 will make it really, really easy for them. So if you want to go check that out, you'll find us at 9to5skin.com. But that is really it for this podcast. Go check out my other socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all at Lavinia Rusanda. I love you guys all so much. Thank you for giving me, the time of day to just share my thoughts. These podcasts are truly like therapy sessions to me, and I just really enjoy speaking with you and sharing, you know, some of my opinions here on Loud Talk. But that is it for this episode. I love you all so much. Remember to tell yourself something you love about your skin today, and you'll hear from me in the next episode of Loud Talk with Lavi. Bye everyone.